Please listen up for this. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is supposed to protect consumers from predatory practices of financial companies. So why would Acting Director Mick Mulvaney advise banking industry executives on ways to diminish the Bureau's power and influence? The New York Times reports Mulvaney told bankers at the American Bankers Association conference on Tuesday they should press lawmakers hard to pursue their agenda. He then casually went on to explain his own pay-to-play rules for lobbyists when he was a congressman, saying, quote, and this is a quote, so nothing's being taken out of context. This is a quote. "We had a hierarchy in my office in Congress. If you're a lobbyist who never gave us money, I didn't talk to you. If you're a lobbyist who gave us money, I might talk to you." He made sure to point out that constituents were at the top of that hierarchy. Wow. Joining me now, CNBC contributor and principal at Risk Reversal Advisors, Dan Nathan, along with my panel, David Jolly and Jason Johnson. Dan, I'm going to get to you, but I got to go to you first, David. You're a former congressman. You're a lawyer. You tell me what pay-to-play is.
Yeah, so first of all, disgusting behavior, whether illegal or not. But this gets right to the line of illegality. It's called the honest services fraud, and it's one of the statutes that prosecutors often use to go after public corruption. It is highly criticized as being a little too vague. Courts sometimes like it, sometimes they don't. But honestly, we have seen weaker honest services fraud cases brought up against public officials compared to what Mick Mulvaney admitted to yesterday. It was wrong. And frankly, I think the American people should see it as being illegal. Likely never be prosecuted, but it should be illegal behavior.
Dan, what does the financial industry think about this? If you think about bank CEOs, they have spent the last 8 years trying desperately to get better reputations in the public eye, to build up their compliance departments. And then you got Mick Mulvaney saying this. And you could argue the CFPB was an overreach. We don't need that agency. But you still need that agency's work. He's freezing all investigations. There's no new ones. He wants us to get less data from banks. And he might even be lessening up regulations on payday lenders, right. The worst of the worst.
You could make that argument that there was an overreach, but yet his agency just actually gave Wells Fargo a $1 billion fine for improprieties that they have, produced since the financial crisis. For years now, they've been actually, numerous sorts of fines. Listen, I think the timing of that comment to bankers is really interesting. When you think about 2018, what's really gone on here? The Committee to Save America has been replaced by the Committee to Defraud America. This guy feels emboldened, by basically what's gone on. Now we have all these, Trump, loyalists here, like acting in which they think that they can do, doing what they can do right now. It's really pathetic.
Okay, but remember, this is we're going to drain the swamp. And I need to share another quote where he said, "Fundamental underpinnings of our representative democracy, and you have to continue to do it." He is talking about lobbying lawmakers. This is how you work with lawmakers. You pay, you meet with them. Wasn't the whole idea with this administration, let's get the lobbyists and the money out?
The story was supposed to be from Trump, "I'm so rich that I won't be influenced by money." And it didn't really play out that way. And it seems like everybody else who's in his administration, whether it's Pruitt, whether it's Mulvaney, are basically saying, hey, I want a slice of the pie as well. This is how I play the game. If I were in the financial industry, I'd be livid because this is opening up the door. Everyone else is now going to say, well, cool, now that the cat's out of the bag, here's what you got to pay in order to even get into the room and talk to me.
But Jason, what's really interesting about that is Wells Fargo, is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of this tax cut. They're expected to maybe have a $3.7 billion gain dropping to their bottom line, so they're going to pay back $1 billion in fines. It seems like a pretty good trade for all intents and purposes, especially if you're a Wells Fargo shareholder.
Well, yeah, and this is already a friendly administration to banking. This is already a friendly administration from the standpoint of getting rid of regulation. But I also think as a constituent, as just an American citizen, you have to be disgusted that a member of our administration, whether it's an elected official, whether it's an administrative official, has basically said, I don't talk to you if you ain't got the cash. That's not how government is supposed to work. And when you have someone who says that so lately and is not chastised, doesn't have Mitch McConnell, doesn't have Paul Ryan, doesn't have members of Congress saying, hey, look, you need to take that back, you need to walk that back. That's what shows us, that's the kind of anger that's leading to these districts fixing.
That's a really good point. Mick Mulvaney said it. Let's say he made a mistake, or let's say it was a screw-up. He could apologize and say, you know what? Where is Mitch McConnell, where's Paul Ryan on this? There's no way Jamie Dimon is happy that he said that.
Right. No, they're guilty as well. I actually introduced legislation in Congress that said no member of Congress may directly solicit a contribution to try to remove them from that process. It is easy to beat up on lobbyists. My political opponents like to remind people I once was one. But I think we need to make sure in scandals like this, we focus on who holds the public trust. The person who holds the public trust is the elected official or the administration official. If they are being unduly influenced, that's the person we target our scorn to. That's the person we kick out of office, or that's the person we indict.
Okay, then, Dan, what do you think this financial regulation should look like? One could argue Dodd-Frank and the Volcker rule went too far, or they were hurting mid-sized banks. But now it almost seems like, you know, the party's back again, and the crisis wasn't that long ago.
Well, and it's back at the wrong time, right? So look at like unemployment, look at where the economy is. So if you're going to roll back regulations at a point, you're going to embolden banks to do some of those risky practices. I mean, here's a guy, Mulvaney actually didn't think this organization should exist when he was in Congress, right? And he took money from payday lenders, lobbyists for payday lenders. Now they're rolling back regulation on subprime autos, subprime home, and payday lenders.
And
it's really
remember, subprime mortgages. That's what got us to the financial crisis. One of the biggest beneficiaries of that disaster, one of the president's, favorite advisors during the campaign, John Paulson.
Yeah, so I mean, the risk is that the timing of the deregulation is really bad, where the economy is running really hot, interest rates are starting to go higher, we have commodity prices going higher, and so this is just adding more fuel to the fire, and then go back to that tax cut, right? So, the timing is not particularly great. I think big banks were most concerned, you just mentioned Jamie Dimon, they were most concerned about capital levels, those sorts of things. I think it was more these regional banks, they were saying that this was affecting small business lending, that sort of thing, but look at where we are with the economy, look at the beneficiaries of this tax cut. I think that it's probably overreaching the other way now if we're going to roll back all of this stuff that kind of helped normalize this process after listen, the financial crisis almost brought the global economy to its knees.
Yes.
Okay, so I think a little overreach is probably okay. I think normalization's fine too, but going too far the other way is going to be a real problem.
See, it's time to go back to the middle. All right, and it's time now for your morning primer. Everything you need to know to get your day started. We begin with French President Emmanuel Macron, set to address both the House and Senate in about an hour from now. It is the first time a foreign leader will speak before a joint meeting of Congress in nearly 2 years. And jurors in Bill Cosby's sexual assault retrial